Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebecca Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. So, fun fact guys, I got the idea for this week's theory almost entirely thanks to you. I wanted to do something more for you on my channel, so I started reviewing episodes of Steven Universe starting from Gem Glow with the goal of catching up with the series and just being able to review them as they come out. And upon doing so, I started to notice things that I hadn't noticed before. One such thing was from the episode Steven and the Stevens. It's very early in the episode. A quote that states that after a mistake is made and the undersea temple that the gems visit in that episode is subsequently flooded, that now they will have to wait 100 years for the temple to reform before they can return and try once again to retrieve the item that they were looking for. What's interesting about this is that the term reform, when applied to gems, refers to a gem rebuilding its body. This asks an interesting question. Is it possible that gem buildings are grown and that there are different types of gem buildings? We know that not all gem buildings are holographic. It's not possible for all gem buildings to be holographic. But in the same episode, we do see, right before water pours into the undersea temple, that a section of the temple's roof seemed to despawn the same way that a gem's weapon does, which is just the holographic form of the weapon deactivating. This seems to suggest that if not the entire building, then at least a substantial part of it was just a solid light holographic avatar, just like one of the gem's bodies. If that is true, then that means that somewhere within that building there was a gem not just powering the building, as we have seen in other instances, but a gem that was literally the building, and that the building itself was that gem's body. If it's true that only part of it was holographic, then that means that it was probably this gem, using some power that it possessed, which built the rest of the temple around itself. And this is substantiated elsewhere in the series as well. In the episode Steven's Lion, the gems go to recover the desert glass, which is confirmed by the crew to be a corrupted gem, and the pillow upon which it sits is confirmed to be its holographic body. Now, for those of you who don't remember, this particular gem, when it comes in contact with sand, not just the gemstone itself, but the gemstone or its holographic body, it begins to reshape that sand, creating random pillars and platforms and the like, but we can imagine that if it wasn't corrupted, it might have a different function. Maybe if it weren't corrupted, it wouldn't build things at random out of sand, but construct a functional building around itself. Let's take a second to look at the way that the gems, both homeworld gems and crystal gems, seem to treat gems that aren't intelligent the way that they are. There are the corrupted gems, of course, which are basically animals, which are bubbled and put in stasis where they don't have to be worried about anymore. But we also see examples of even the crystal gems using broken gems to animate armor and cracked gems to power objects. Now, I genuinely don't think that the crystal gems knew that the gem powering Lapis' mirror was actually an intelligent being, because there do seem to be gems which are not sapient, which are not at that sapient level of intelligence. These are the types of gems that we see all over the place powering objects and buildings that the crystal gems visit on a regular basis. So does that mean that there are kindergartens out there where gems are created which don't have a sapient level of intelligence and don't have humanoid bodies that are used to power objects, or, like in the case of the desert glass, construct buildings for gems to live in on the planets that they conquer? It's a really interesting question, and I think the answer is yes. Additionally, we have seen evidence that even physical gem structures are literally grown. Look at the crystal heart, which powers the crystal gem's temple. We know that it isn't literally a heart, it's just a very large gemstone, but it does have tendrils which extend all throughout the temple, likely contributing energy to sustain the temple's magic. And while the majority of the temple is made out of stone, there are definitely crystalline aspects to the interior. And the wall of the temple, which makes up the back wall of Steven's house, which contains the door to enter the temple, also seems to be made out of some kind of crystal rather than stone. And it is a fact that crystals grow. That's how they form, in fact. The materials stack and settle on top of each other and grow. Now, obviously, they don't literally grow in the same way that a living thing does, but I could certainly see the crew drawing inspiration from this when deciding how to portray certain gem structures. It's possible that, to make the temple, the crystal gems just had to implant the crystal heart into the mountain and then let it grow and spread itself throughout the interior. And this isn't the only place that we see evidence of this either. Similar tendrils are spread all throughout the interior of Peridot's ship, and her power source does sort of resemble the Crystal Heart. Is it possible that Peridot's ship wasn't built, but literally grown, that the hull wasn't actually made of a green metal, but a green crystal? Well, the temple is still quite mysterious, and Peridot's ship is still unlike anything else we've seen in the series so far, and it's therefore kind of hard to gauge anything about their construction. I do think that the rest of this theory fits pretty well. I do think that gem structures are, at least in part, grown or constructed by singular gemstones, that gem buildings, at least some gem buildings, are themselves gems. Just not gems that can think for themselves. There are, of course, some exceptions. The Lunar Sea Spire did not seem to have any holographic components. It certainly didn't seem to have its own onboard power source, which could have also acted as the construction mechanism, something like the Desert Glass. If it had, then they wouldn't have needed to go through the whole ordeal of connecting with the moon base and beaming power into the spire, or whatever it is that they intended to do. But the line about the undersea temple from Steven and the Stevens literally having to reform itself is just too strong a piece of evidence to ignore. I don't know, guys, maybe this is a bit more speculation than theory, but hey, I think some of this could turn out to be true. But what do you think? Is this theory solidly constructed, or do you think you could build upon it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. This has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. Do you have a theory idea or merely a musing about the show that you'd like me to discuss? You can head on over to my Facebook page and send me a message detailing your ideas, and if I find them interesting enough, I'll be sure to respond. Or you could head on over to my Tumblr page and send me an ask. If it's not something that I've covered before, I'll be sure to answer. If you are on Facebook or Tumblr, I also recommend that you like and or follow me there as well to keep up to date on all of my content, as well as any supplementary content that I might post on either of those sites. And if you know anyone on Facebook or Tumblr who might find my content interesting, please share it with them. I'd really appreciate it.